Jeez, I didn't click the wrong button. Peace, peace, peace. I am Phillip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the August 5th edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Listen, I just woke up maybe about like 8 to 9 minutes ago, man. So you know how when you take that late afternoon nap and you wake up and you have no idea who you are, you have no idea where you're at. I woke up, I was just ready to start throwing punches because I just didn't know where I was at. I thought I had been kidnapped. Lo and behold, I'm on my couch after taking it. And the naps don't even be that long. The naps only be like I think this was like 24-minute nap that I took, but it was one of them joints where you got in long enough to where you really wanted to stay asleep, but not long enough to where you could actually stay asleep because you got things to do, man. So, but I'm here. It's just it's just one of those days. But again, this what man, yo, I'm really tired. Let me drink some of this energy drink. So yeah, peace, peace, peace. This is the August 5th edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Props to those who are watching on Facebook Live. Shout out to those who are watching on YouTube Live. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Um, and shout out to Chris. I think Chris might be the only one on IG Live right now. Shout out to him, man. He talked about me brushing my hair before I came on. Listen, I don't. I need to lean on into the bald side of life because my hairline is doing like the Y2C, right? Like it's here, then it's up, then it's down. It's doing a lot of things right now. So I gotta brush it because otherwise it's gonna look even crazier. But listen, we got a good show on tap for y'all. Only got one thing to talk about today, even though it's so many other things that I could be talking about. But I've been pushing this conversation off for the last few days. Uh, I don't even have a reason why I've been pushing it off the last few days, but I'm glad I did because more things dropped today. So if you aren't aware, college athletics is being turned on its head, right? Due to COVID. In reality, all of these sports should be being turned on their heads because, again, we're talking about player safety. We're talking about players putting their lives, like literally putting their lives on the line to make other people money. And none is truer, and none is truer. None is truer than in college athletics, where these student athletes, and we know that they're athletes first, then they come students, because if they stop playing, then they're no longer a student at the university. Unless they come out of their pocket, and still there's a possibility that they still might have to come out of their pocket because some scholarships are not guaranteed, right? You have partial scholarships where might get half your tuition paid, or you might get a scholarship for 1 year. But again, you have to produce. And if you do not produce, and if you don't live up to expectations of the respective program that you're at, then there is a likelihood that you will no longer be a student athlete at these predominantly white institutions in particular. So this past weekend, a story dropped in the Players Tribune where players from the Pac-12, and so the Pacific Coast Conference is, again, you can think about it, it's schools that are located on the Pacific Coast, right? It's like, listen, it's 1 + 1 = 2. And so schools included are, you have your UCLAs, you have your Washingtons, you have your Washington States, you have your USCs. These are big time programs, and athletics at these various institutions, again, bring in hundreds of millions of dollars. And so what has taken place, and I think it's actually remarkable, are that students from this conference have banded together to give out a list of demands to their overseers, right? Because we can use slavery terminology because this is exactly what's happening. They are free labor, right? They are free labor. But what happened is they have banded together over 400 students. I don't know the last time we've seen 400 young people band together for a common cause, right? Against adults, no less. I'm trying to think of something where kids were just maybe the Lord of the Flies or something. I don't know. But they've banded together and let out they published a list of demands in the Players Tribune, right? And so this list of demands that they published were related to health and safety protections, protecting all sports, right? So not eliminating sports because it's not bringing in the 75 to $100 million that football might be bringing in. Ending racial injustice in college sports and society. And then their final demand was economic freedom and equity. And we know this has been something big within college sports because, again, these overseers, these programs are pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars, and players are, up until now, right, and it's still in the process, but they were unable to profit off their image and likeness. And so you have, for 20 years, you have EA Sports college football game out that was resembling both physically and the characteristics, the athletic characteristics of players. It's just like, yo, this looks like me, but this is player number 22, right? This is player number 25 and not Reggie Bush. And so, again, we know who they were and we know who they are, but they couldn't get money off it. We saw Terrell Pryor, who played for the Ohio State Buckeyes in the Big Ten, right? And they've also banded together, but theirs has been a little bit different. Theirs is not as in-depth as what the Pac-12 players are asking for. And Terrell Pryor was suspended because he signed some jerseys in order to get free tattoos. What that sounds to me is like it's the American way. It's a barter system. I do for you, you do for me. But unfortunately, he was suspended because of it. Because again, players can bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars to their institution, but the only thing they can get is education and room and board, right? It's been estimated that players at big universities like Ohio State and like Alabama, they are worth $1 million. Individual players are worth more than $1 million to their program. And they can't go and get a free tattoo, a free $100 tattoo for a jersey. But yet they're worth this amount of money. And so to go in just a little bit more detail as to what the Pac-12 is offering, and with this is also what the Big Ten Conference is asking for. So that's your Michigans. That's locally. We're talking about Penn State. We're talking about Rutgers. They're asking for health and safety protections, in particular COVID-19 protections, right? Allowing the option to not play during a pandemic without losing athletics eligibility or spot on their own team's rosters, right? And to prohibit void COVID-19 agreements that waive liability. I talked about it some episodes ago, how Ohio State was having players sign waivers in order for them to practice and to participate in voluntary, quote unquote, voluntary training sessions. Now, Ohio State tried to say that they aren't waivers. They tried to give it some fancy name, right? Like some team camaraderie paperwork, something to that effect. When in actuality, it's a waiver. And it makes the school not liable if something was to happen to this student, in particular, if they indeed catch COVID and had some physical ills related to it. When they talk about protecting all sports, they're talking about preserving all existing sports by eliminating excessive expenditures. They're ending performance academic bonuses, ending lavish facility expenditures, and use some endowment funds to preserve all sports. So what this means is because water polo isn't bringing in as much money as football, instead of going and building another $25 million gym, that money can be used to preserve the water polo team, because these athletes matter just as much, right? Because they're doing just as demanding of work as those who are bringing in the more lucrative, who are more lucrative with their sports. So, as an example, and we know Stanford University has cut, they've cut, they've gotten rid of, they've dismantled many of their lower tier sports. But what they're saying is, listen, no, you need to tap into your $27.7 billion endowment. Because again, some of these students who might be playing on a water polo team might not be able to attend college, but if not for that particular sport at that school, right? So if you have a $30 billion endowment, that sport should continue to exist. That player, that athlete should be able to attend. Now they're talking about ending racial injustice in college sports and society. And so what they're asking for is a 2% of conference revenue will be directed by players to support financial aid for low-income black students, community initiatives, and development programs for college athletes on each campus. Think about it like this. When we talk about these athletes are worth $1 million. And those who know, I just got finished reading the book $40 Million Slave. Because that was a term that a fan yelled at Larry Johnson of the NBA, who played for the New York Knicks. And it was just like, you're nothing more than a $40 million slave. And so with this, these college athletes, they aren't being compensated. But think about where they're coming from, right? They're coming from these poverty-stricken environments, some, not all, but they're plucking them from their environments, right? So they're taking them, they're bringing them to a Penn State's campus. Now they have to go on the field and perform. And we know with them performing, the school makes money. Like I said, these athletes at these big time institutions are worth in upwards of $1 million. But yet nothing is going back into the communities that these players are coming from, right? These schools are making all of this money, but they're not reinvesting into the community because they view these individuals as commodities, right? They're commodities on a conveyor belt. They're cogs. That's it. Nothing more. And so when they're done with them, hopefully the student has graduated, but more than likely they're going right back into these communities. And all they have is the story that I once played for Penn State. The community is no better for it, right? There's no community improvement as a result of that. So what this is saying is, no, if you're going to start going into these communities, and again, whether white, brown, yellow, it doesn't matter. You need to be investing into these communities where you're taking these players from. Also, what they're asking is to form a Black College Athlete Summit with guaranteed representation of at least 3 athletes of our choice from every school. What they're saying is representation matters. We have a voice. We are powerful. And now they're leaning into the power that they have. They're leaning into the power that they have. See, unfortunately, and especially within the Black community, and I'm seeing it now, because again, a lot of students are going to be starting school. They're going to be going to these different colleges, right? And it's just the excitement of, oh, I get to go to college, which is a beautiful thing. We know that going to college does nothing to close the disparity with regards to the wage gap. We know that is fact. But maybe this might help out an individual, might help out a family potentially. But in the grand scheme of things, this really does nothing, right? When we're talking about closing that wage gap between white folk and black folk. And so they're so excited to go and to get to these universities because of this type of prestige, this type of it's we have sort of this reverence for college, which I really think is based in meeting the white folks' idea of what success looks like. And again, yes, college is beneficial. I done been there for the 3 to 4 times, right? About to go back again. But it's really leaning to what white people deem as being successful. And that's why you see so many people pushing back against the idea, well, saying, listen, you know what, you could go to trade school. Or if you're going to go to college, listen, go to a community college. Because they recognize that the trade-off is usually hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to fulfill this and live this quote-unquote American dream. Especially black folk. Because now we're starting to get into the area where we're seeing these are second generation college students. And I don't even I don't even feel comfortable in saying that because I don't even know the statistics. There are still a lot of first generation black students who are going to college. And again, that pressure, that pressure to quote unquote make it. When in actuality, all they're doing is being used. All we're doing is being used for what we can give the university. We know that the more black folk you have at your university, the more funding you get. The more great black athletes you can have, the more money you'll make. And so again, this college system is modern day slavery because at the end of it, what are we left with? Some debt. And if you're lucky, a degree. And last but not least, and I talked about this, the idea of economic freedom and equity. So guaranteed medical expense coverage to cover 6 years after college eligibility ends. How amazing is that? Because we don't even think about the type of injuries and the type of long-term assistance that these college players might need. They're putting their hearts, minds, and souls on the line for $1 billion industry. But once they step foot off this campus, many are uninsured, but still dealing with nagging injuries that developed during their time in college athletics. They're also talking about name, image, and likeness rights and representation. So they're looking for the ability to be able to have, to receive basic necessities from any third party and earn money for the use of the aforementioned, or to secure representation. And this is why Zion Williamson is now being sued because someone said they gave his family $100,000, gave him a boatload of money. And so in this instance, what they're saying is they should be able to receive monies. They should be able to receive funds, right? Because why? They're the one doing the work. Again, we're long past the idea of people doing work for free and not being rightfully compensated. Some people say, and opponents of it argue that, well, you're getting a $60,000 education. So I'm worth $1 million, but I'm getting only $60,000. That's not congruent, right? I went into social work, but I could do a little math. That doesn't add up. And so what they're saying is they should be able to have the right to have an agent, not only to potentially give them money to help them out with basic necessities, but to secure them deals. You think Zion Williamson couldn't have gotten a Nike deal? The school has a Nike deal. You think he couldn't have got a sponsorship for a local car company to pay him $5,000, $10,000? Some of these individuals, their stock won't be any higher than it is while they're at college. They are college celebrities. They will not go on to be big time. You trying to tell me if I'm a player who always goes to Cracker Barrel and everybody knows me for going to Cracker Barrel in that time, and Cracker Barrel's like, listen, we want to sponsor you, we want to give you free meals at Cracker Barrel to put you on a flyer, put you on a little billboard for our little town, that they can't do that? Why not? But yet the university can negotiate with Cracker Barrel, can negotiate with the auto group to get money, to get sponsorship dollars for advertisement. Again, it doesn't make sense. And so the real reason why I wanted to bring this up, right, is what's taking place in Washington. And what you'll see Washington State coach Rolovich, for those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook, and you'll see Cassidy Woods, who is a wide receiver and was a wide receiver for Washington State. And so what's happened with that is Cassidy Woods called his coach and he said, listen, yeah, coach, I think I'm opting out because I have sickle cell trait and I don't want to get sick from the coronavirus and potentially have any health complications. And what Rolovich told Woods was, he said, listen, that's cool. That's cool. I'm all right with you opting out. But let me ask you this. Are you down with this unity group and what they're asking? And he's like, yeah, coach. Yeah, I'm for it. I'm with it. And he tells them that's going to be a problem, right? And that's going to be an issue if you align with them as far as future stuff. He says the COVID stuff is one thing, but joining this group is going to be different. If you say I'm opting out because of COVID and health and safety, I'm good. But this group is going to change how things go in the future for everybody, at least at our school. And so Wood's like, whoa, what exactly are you saying? Right? What exactly are you saying? And what it turns out, what he is saying is, listen, if you get down with this group and you participate in this group, then you will not have a scholarship the next year. You are done. Your time is over. You cannot participate in this group who's protesting and who has list of demands. This is no different than folk who've been protesting during Black Lives Matter and your job saying, listen, if you go out and protest, then no, you no longer have a job. Now, what Cassidy did was, which was smart, was that he recorded the conversation. And so now here we have evidence that he is being discriminated against because of his choice to stand up for social justice and stand up for the rights of not only himself, but the rights of others, right? And so Woods asked if he could still participate in like training. And so rightfully so, Rolovich said, nah, it would send mixed messages because if you're opting out due to COVID, then no, we cannot have you around. For those of you who have played team sports, you recognize that, it's the team and then it's everybody else. And so having Woods come in, even if it's just to work out, that sends a mixed message, right? Because again, you're opting out for health reasons. And so if your health is paramount, then you need to stay over there. And me personally, I have no issue with that. But apparently Jerlene Woods, who's Cassidy Woods' mother, she tweeted out, and it's a new day when you see moms tweeting out. And this got to be a young mom, relatively young mom, probably late 30s, early 40s. I don't want to stereotype, but it's, I don't think my mom who's in her 60s would be tweeting out. You know what I'm saying? I don't think she'd be tweeting out her frustrations. But again, this is a new day, right? And so she tweeted out saying that the damage is, he tweeted out saying that the damage is already done. And his mom said that, listen, they were told that they were cut and that they had to clean out their lockers. Now, Washington State said that this didn't happen. Although his locker is cleaned out, and they're saying that it's a result of him not being a part of the team this year. He still has a scholarship. But they tell the media that. They don't tell the player that, which again is kind of fishy. And so you have the head coach, you have the athletic director who are both on the same page as, listen, you participating in this is problematic, right? It's problematic. And so we're talking about 400 players here. And I think that's what the amazing part is, that this started first from a, he wasn't even a football player, but he was an athlete in another sport in a graduate program who's doing work to understand social justice as it comes to sports. And he started reaching out to people. And next thing you know, they have 400 people in the midst of a group text, right? Who are really promoting their individual health and safety. They're saying that the same ones handling these regulations are the ones set to make millions if we play. And so think about that, right? Think about this at your workplace. Think about this at your child's school. The same ones who are making the regulations are the same ones who benefit from it if you do come in and show up. And so we talk about these testing protocols. The issue is that some schools, they have amazing protocols where they're getting tested on a weekly basis. They're getting tested regularly. They're taking all the precautions. But where the issue started to arise was in the midst of this group text, they're saying, oh, your school doing that? Man, they talking about testing us every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. So here you have a school saying we testing every week. Then you have another school saying we testing every 3 weeks. You start hearing about some of the procedures that are in place about distancing and only 10 people can be in the weight room. And then you say, well, dang, our school doesn't have that in place. And so now I have to play against somebody who hasn't been taking the necessary precautions. And so again, this is akin to me saying why I don't want my daughter to go back into the classroom setting. I know what I'm doing and what we doing on our end, where she's social distancing, where she wears a mask wherever she goes. I don't know what y'all doing over there with y'all kids. I don't know what these teachers are doing. And clearly, health and safety isn't number one. If you're telling me that I have to wear a mask and I have to do all this to even be in this environment, because I have to do all this to be in this environment, then it's not safe to have anyway. And then we start looking around at these other conferences. UConn has canceled football. The MEAC, which is a black conference, has canceled football. And so with that being said, it's just like, you got some schools, some sports saying, no, we're canceling all fall sports. The Ivy League canceled all fall sports. But you have these other schools saying, we going to do it? What's the difference? Now, one could make a legitimate argument saying that money, right, like revenue is a difference, which helps and hurts. Because if you're at risk of losing $100 million, then you're going to do everything in your power. But if you are only making $5 million from your sports anyway, then what's the point? But also conversely, a proponent of it will say, listen, well, we have the resources necessary to ensure the safety of the student athletes. So the Pac-12, for example, the Pac-12 in the last 4 years, they've increased revenue by $200 million. And so the players are asking, it's not like everything has gotten $200 million more expensive. Where the bread? Where the money? Where the money? If you're working for a company and your company has just made $100 million and you still making $50,000 a year, bro, where that bread going? What y'all doing with that money? Who gets it? Who getting these bonuses? No, we good with this, with the same gym we got. We don't need that. We all right. Cash me outside. How about that? But again, this is where we talk about the greed. And this is where we know that money rules the world and everything in it. Sky's the limit. Right? And so with Cassidy Woods, We have no idea what his future holds. We have no idea what his future holds in regards to his playing career at Washington State. For these 400 players, it's easy to sit and say, we gonna do this, because then when the rubber hits the road and it's time to play a game, who gonna go out on that field? We already have some players who've said, listen, I support y'all, but I'm still gonna go out here. Right? And I'm sure there's a slave analogy, slave comparison in there somewhere. Let's see what y'all saying. Chris says, COVID-19 is forcing schools to front like they really care about the students when they really don't give a damn. Again, because the purpose of school is to make money. The purpose of schools is the bottom dollar, right? The students come second. Yes, we would love to ensure your health and wellness. We would love to do that, but we got to make money too. And it's not saying that they're mutually exclusive. No, they both can happen at the same time. But if we have to sacrifice in order to continue to make this money, then that's what we're going to do. Again, I know this ain't the sexiest of topics. It's not the sexiest of topics, right? But again, this speaks to a larger issue, because so many of us are sending our kids to these college institutions and we expect them to somehow, ideally be treated humanely. You're entrusting your students, your children, into the hands of people who could give a damn. And this isn't only in sports. Think about the idea of rape culture on college campuses, where just now they're getting into some colleges and universities about promoting the idea of rape culture and really solidifying their stance when it comes to sexual assaults that happen on campus. So many institutions have swept it under a rug. We've seen this take place at Michigan State within the last 2 years, where their basketball coach, Tom Izzo, goes to speak to an accuser. And this type of egregious behavior happens all the time. Because we know college athletes get preferential treatment in some areas. Again, we talk about defunding the police. We also need to talk about destroying this college system that currently exists, because it's clearly for profit. I'm sure those of you who see those ads on your social media, whether true or not, talking about politicians are saying, listen, we need to do something about the student loan crisis. Because all this shit is for profit. It's all for profit. What else y'all talking about? I'm about to get up out these streets. It ain't nothing popping in the chat. So, yeah, man, I'm going back to sleep. Y'all be safe. Catch y'all tomorrow. Deuces.